Hello and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, my name is Jill, and today we are doing the September recap. I feel like people say this every single month, but I truly can't believe that September is over. I don't know where the time has gone. I have such a busy October, and so it just feels like time is running away from me. Let's start by talking about the books I read this month. I read some really good ones. It was a good reading month. I read 5 different books. So the first one I read was Finding Me by Viola Davis. So this is a memoir of Viola's life, and if you know me, you know that I absolutely love Viola Davis. She's one of my favorite actresses. And so I'm surprised I haven't already read this book, but I finally did this month. And I actually read the physical book, but also listened to the audiobook. I would say I probably listened to like 80% and read 20%. It's narrated by her. She actually won a Grammy for her reading of this memoir. And that is definitely the way that you should consume this book if you're going to read it, I think, is listening to the audiobook, because I mean, it's her words in her own voice, like told to you by her. And it was just a great way to like hear her story. She has had an incredible life. I had no idea about like the struggles that she had gone through in her childhood and like leading up to how we know her now. And so obviously there are some heavy themes talked about in this book, so just keep that in mind. But it was so fantastic. It was a great book to start off September with, and I obviously gave it 5 stars. The next book I read was From Scratch, a memoir of love, Sicily, and finding home by Tembi Locke. And this is a Reese's book club pick. And Tembi is an actress. I'm not familiar with her, but this is telling the story of her kind of dealing with the passing of her husband. So it's flashing back and forth between her meeting her husband in Sicily, and she's a Black American. So those difficulties that they went through at the beginning of their relationship and like mixing their families and things like that. But then it's mostly talking about her grief in losing him, and he was a chef. And so she's tying kind of like, you know, cooking and food into this story of losing him. I never really felt that connected with this story for some reason. It just kind of was lacking something for me. I really don't know what it was about it, but I just never fully got into it. I'll say if you want something that ties up food with grief, maybe just watch The Bear instead, because this just didn't hit for me. I gave it 3 stars because I enjoyed reading the story and like learning about her family and his family and kind of how they navigated that, but it just didn't pull me in. Next, I read a book that I actually have the physical copy of, and that is I Let You Go by Claire Mackintosh, and I loved this. I could not wait to pick it up. I couldn't wait to read it every day. Like, I loved this so much. I actually got this in a book advent calendar that I got from a local bookstore a few Christmases ago, and it's just been sitting on my shelf ever since. I'm so glad that I read this. I don't want to say too much about it, only because it is like a mystery thriller kind of book. So I think the best way to go into it is without knowing too much about the plot. There were a few twists that I saw coming. There were some I didn't. It was a really enjoyable reading experience. And I think what I really liked about it is the main character ends up going to Wales. So they're from London, I think, and they end up going to Wales. And I used to study in Wales, and they actually like take the bus to Swansea, which is where my university was. And it was very interesting reading about this fictional town that was based on a place that I had actually been. And yeah, I thought it was a very like atmospheric book where the author really brought you into the setting and it kind of played a role in the story. So I highly recommend I Let You Go, and I gave it 5 stars. The next book I read is another Reese's Book Club pick, and that is Infinite Country by Patricia Engel. This was a very short book. I think it was only like 180 pages or something like that. I knew a little bit about the premise of this before reading it, and it interested me, which is why I wanted to check it out. It focuses on a family that is split between America and Colombia, and kind of their struggle as a family to all get into the same country, basically. Obviously, it's a very upsetting story, a very timely story, and it focuses on a lot of the struggles and hardships that people face when they are trying to immigrate to a different country, particularly America. This one, again, didn't really capture me. Something about the writing style, or I just didn't really like get into it and didn't find myself looking forward to picking it up. I think it's an important story. Like, I think the baseline of it is something important in today's world, but it just didn't capture me as a story. So I ended up giving it 3 stars. The final book I read this month is Don't Let Him In by Lisa Jewell, and I also have the physical copy of that one. I just, as a side note, it has the like, I don't know what that's called, like the beveled edges, and I hate those so much. I know that is a very controversial topic to bring up, but I hate the pages that are like uneven because I can't easily flip them. Anyway, this was such a good book. I love Lisa Jewell. I have read all of her books, and this is her newest one, and finally got around to reading it. It follows Ash, whose father recently passed, and she is kind of dealing with not really knowing where she fits into the world. She's in her mid to late 20s, I think. And so it's focusing on her and her mother, who then starts dating a new man. I don't want to say much more than that because, again, I think it's best to go in without really knowing too much about what's going on. But this is a very plausible book, I think. It reminds me a lot of some documentaries that you might see on like Netflix and things about like these sketchy men. I'll just leave it at that. But again, I always was looking forward to reading this each day. Like, I wanted to see what was going to happen. There's some really short chapters, which I love. And I think what also made it so good is that my mom had read it right before me, so we could like talk about what was happening and kind of, you know, discuss the different characters and things like that. So that's always fun. I will say there were some women making some choices that were bothering me because I hate characters that make the worst decisions. However, like I said, I have seen enough documentaries to know that these are actually decisions that people would make in real life. I may not, but other people would. So it did feel like grounded in reality in that way. And it has a very satisfying ending. So highly recommend Don't Let Him In, and I gave it 5 stars. Let's move on to movies. So I watched 9 movies this month. Some were hits, some were misses. So the first one I watched was, I'm sure you've seen this, it's a Netflix documentary, Unknown Number, The High School Catfish. I don't think there's anyone who hasn't seen this because it has been all over the internet. There are memes everywhere about this documentary. Basically, it's about a teenage girl and her boyfriend. They're in high school and they start getting like some really intense text messages like harassing them. And the town, like the community, is basically trying to figure out who is doing this. And I'll leave it at that. It is a crazy story, and I need everybody involved to go to therapy immediately. Like I said, I'm sure everyone has already seen this and you know who was doing it, but I will zip my lips in case you haven't seen it. And I mean, it's just a Netflix documentary, so I gave it 3 stars because, you know, it is what it is, but definitely recommend if you haven't seen it. Next, I watched Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and I don't know why it took me so long to watch this. Like, I had seen Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse when it came out, and I loved it, so I don't know why it took me so long to watch the second one. It's just as beautiful as the first one. The animation style is so beautiful, so colorful. I feel like you could watch it like 5 times and like notice things every single time because there's so much happening every single scene. The music is so good. The story is great. I will say when it popped up at the end, to be continued, I did not know that, and that was frustrating for me. So obviously, I'm looking forward to the 3rd installment coming out because I need to know what's going to happen immediately. I will say with the animation though, sometimes it almost makes me feel like car sick. Like, because there's so much going on, and sometimes it makes my eyes feel blurry. I don't know if this is a me thing, but maybe it's just too much. My brain cannot handle it. It's too much. But overall, such a great movie. I'm fingers crossed the 3rd holds up and it will be a great trilogy. And I gave it 4 stars. Next, I'll say rewatched The Shining. I have tried to watch The Shining in the past. I always fall asleep. It just doesn't capture my attention. So I was like, it's getting into spooky season. I'm going to watch The Shining and I'm going to sit down, focus, stay awake, put toothpicks in my eyes, and, watch this movie. And even still, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it's for me. That sounds crazy to say about like a very classic movie, but it just didn't capture me. I think it's absolutely a beautiful movie. I love the cinematography of it. There's a definite sense of unease, which I really like in a movie. Like, it's not so like scary all the time, but it's like unsettling. But I found myself getting bored at times where I just like didn't really care. I think it's one of those movies that, like, as I sit with it, as I think about it more, maybe if I watch it again in its entirety, I would have like a more fully formed opinion on it, but I just kind of didn't care. Shelley Duvall's character, Wendy, her whole wardrobe, I want it. I want everything that she wore. So that's my takeaway from The Shining. I gave it 3.5 stars, and I would be open to revisiting it maybe next Halloween season. Another movie that I feel like I maybe have to like sit with more is My Cousin Vinny. I hate a miscommunication trope in a movie. Like, I hate it when something is said and instead of like asking clarifying questions, being like, hold up, wait, what's going on? And figuring it out together, it just like snowballs from there. That drives me crazy. That's basically the premise of this whole movie. And so for the first half, I was just like slightly annoyed the whole time. The second half, I loved. I thought it was fantastic. So I'm really torn because I don't like the whole setup of the movie, but then I really liked the ending of the movie. So this is why I think if I were to rewatch it, I would kind of like know what's coming and appreciate the first half more, if that makes sense. I don't know. I'm just so torn because I really did like the second half of it, but I was kind of annoyed the first half. And again, Mona Lisa Vito is a style icon and her whole wardrobe is fantastic, but I ended up giving it 3.5 stars as well. Next, I rewatched a classic, one of my favorites, Juno, and I love this movie. I remember seeing it in theaters. I think I was 15 when it came out, and immediately going home and like telling my parents I need the Juno DVD for Christmas. Because back in those days, we didn't have streaming platforms. So if you saw a movie that you liked, you had to wait for it to come out on DVD and get that so you could watch it anytime you want. And immediately I was like, put this on my Christmas list. I need Juno in my life all the time. Also, the soundtrack was very important to me as a 15-year-old. I listened to it all the time. This was like revisiting one of my childhood favorites, and it still holds up. It's such a good movie. Jennifer Garner is the sweetest person alive. She was the only person that could have played that role. It's also very obviously dated in the language that they use, but it like transports me right back to high school, which is really funny feeling. So it's almost like you're cringing at your own nostalgia. It is such a good movie, and I'll cry every single time. Of course, I gave it 5 stars. Next is a first time watch, and that is Practical Magic. I had to watch it for the fall vibes, the spooky vibes, and I don't know what this movie was trying to be. Is it a romance movie? Is it a thriller? Is it a horror movie? Is it just a family Halloween movie? I have no idea, but I loved every second of it, so that's all that really matters to me. I can definitely see this being a movie that I have to watch each fall. Like, the vibes of it are just so cozy and a little bit scary, and I just really loved the world of Practical Magic. Also, I love Sandra Bullock, so of course I was going to love this. And even though my name is Jillian, I am definitely more of a Sally, and I gave Practical Magic 4 stars. The next movie is another rewatch, and that is The Goonies. This is another instance where I've like seen bits and pieces of The Goonies. I've never sat down and been like, I'm going to watch The Goonies. So that's what I did. I don't really care for it. I think it's one of those movies where if you didn't see it at a very specific age and you don't have the nostalgia wrapped around it, it's just not that good, and it's basically just a bunch of kids screaming for like 2 hours, which is not something that I really necessarily want to watch. I feel like every time I see it, I love the first 10 minutes of it. And so I'm like, oh, this is gonna be good. Like, I can't wait to like be in this world and like, yes, I'm in. And then it just turns into, like I said, the screaming children, and it just doesn't capture my attention. It doesn't hold my attention. I just think it's not for me. So that'll probably be the last time I force myself to try and watch The Goonies, and I will just accept that it is not one for me. And I gave it 3 stars. Next, I did a rewatch of The Grand Budapest Hotel, and this is one of my favorite movies, so I knew it was going to be a good time. I love Wes Anderson. I think his movies are kind of comfort watches to me because they just are so perfectly shot. They're so symmetrical, and so you can just watch it and you know everything is going to be beautiful and just aesthetically pleasing, so you kind of know what you're walking into. I will say it's been a while since I watched this movie, so I forgot little like details and little things that happened. So it was really nice to watch it again, and I think obviously it's probably one, if not his most popular movie. And I do think it's probably my favorite of his that I've seen. I have not seen all of his movies. That is a work in progress, but I highly recommend watching it if you haven't. It is, again, just so beautiful, and the music is so good, and it's a great story. I think it might be my favorite Ralph Fiennes movie. Sorry, Harry Potter. Obviously, it was 5 stars. And finally, the last movie I watched in September was another rewatch, and that was Horrible Bosses. Just needed a funny movie one night, you know, one of those classic comedies. And while we were watching, my mom and I both said they just don't make comedy movies like that anymore. Like, there just aren't movies that you're laughing and like it's just silly and it's like just like a screwball comedy kind of vibe. That's what we needed that night, and that's what Horrible Bosses is. Yes, there are parts that do not age well, and of course there are storylines that you're like, I don't know if that's what we should be doing right now, but it's still a good time. And Jennifer Aniston in that is so unlike anything else she has ever done, so I always love watching her in that role. Sometimes you just need one of those like stupid comedies to watch, and I gave it 3.5 stars. Let's talk about TV shows. So first, started watching The Bear. I kind of mentioned that when we were talking about the books. We had never seen it, so there are 4 seasons out right now. The 4th just came out this summer, I think. Obviously, I would always see it get like nominated at award shows, and people were always talking about it, and we were like, let's try it. I love it. I think it is such a beautifully shot show. I love how there are some episodes where there's like very little talking and it's just acting and just like telling the story in other ways. We are on season 3. We're almost done season 3 now, but I just love it. I think it's so well done. The first episode is so chaotic and messy, and like my anxiety was like spiking because it was just so much, like putting yourself in their shoes. As it goes on, there is less of that high anxiety feeling, but still anxiety, because just working in a restaurant, like I've worked in quick service restaurants at Disney. Obviously that is nothing like this, but that alone was too much for me. So I cannot even imagine working in these types of restaurants. But I highly recommend The Bear. Like I said when I was talking about books, it does a really good job of dealing with like grief and kind of like weaving that into the story as well. And yeah, just highly recommend. Next, Only Murders in the Building came out with, how many seasons have there been of that? We're on season 5. So season 5 of Only Murders started, and I love this show. I think the dynamic between Selena, Steve, and Martin is so sweet and cute and funny, and I just really like them as like a trio. I will say that season 4 was not my favorite season. I'm liking this season better already than I liked the previous season, but I highly recommend it. Very funny, and it's kind of like a cozy murder show. I guess that's how I would describe it, but I'm glad that it's back and it gives good like fall time vibes. The morning show also came back for season 4, and I feel like it's been so long since season 3 ended that literally when we started episode 1 of season 4, we had to like watch the recap to be like, what is happening in this show again? And then it kind of refreshes your memory and you get back to where you were. I love the morning show. I think it's such a well done show. I think it's very relevant, obviously, because they work kind of within our actual timeline of reality. And so you're seeing how like a big news corporation like that would actually react to things in the world. And I think this is going to be a really strong season. I like the episodes I've watched so far. I think there's been 3 that have come out, but I'm really enjoying it. I think Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon, they're so good in this show. Like, they're so, again, different from what they have done in the past. I think their dynamic together is really good. I also really love Greta Lee, so I love her in the show. And I think the morning show does a really good job of ramping up like the drama for like a cliffhanger almost every single episode. And so then you're like, oh, I have to wait another week to see what's going to happen. And I have been hooked since season 1, and I'm so glad it's back. So if you haven't watched the morning show, I highly recommend checking it out. Next, we started watching Black Rabbit, which is Jason Bateman and Jude Law, and it's on Netflix. I think all the episodes dropped at one time. I think we've seen maybe 4 of them. It's a limited series, mini-series, something like that. It was funny because we started watching The Bear, and then Black Rabbit came out and we were like, oh, let's try this. We always are watching like multiple shows at one time. And it's like about 2 brothers that have a restaurant from their family. And I was like, this sounds similar, but it's very dark and gritty and very high anxiety because not only are we dealing with working in a restaurant, but we also have a crime aspect kind of weaved in there. I can only watch about 1 episode at a time because it is just a lot. It didn't grab me as much as some other shows. Like the very first episode, I was like, yeah, I want to keep watching this. But at the same time, I was like, okay, like let's see where this goes. I will say it's interesting to see Jason Bateman playing not like the straight man in the show. He is kind of the one that's like the wild card, so that's very different for him. So that's fun to watch, but we'll see how that goes. Definitely gonna continue watching it. And the final show that I have been loving in September is Dancing with the Stars. I know that Dancing with the Stars has gained like a lot of popularity over the past few seasons. I have watched Dancing with the Stars for a very long time. I always look forward to it. Sometimes I don't know a lot of the celebrities because they're older, but as I get older, I do know a lot of the celebrities. Isn't that funny? And I am really enjoying it. I think everyone is really strong this season, so that's exciting. I do like seeing more like progression, but there are definitely people who can improve always. And the thing I'm loving about Dancing with the Stars is Danielle Fishel, who played Topanga on Boy Meets World. She is on this season, and she is doing a podcast where she's talking to some of the pros, some choreographers, other contestants, former contestants, things like that. Hearing her kind of like behind the scenes insight into the show is adding like another layer to it for me. And so I'm really enjoying that. And then Will Friedle and Ryder Strong, also from Boy Meets World, they've been doing a podcast and they have not ever watched Dancing with the Stars. So they're kind of giving their input on people's dances too. So I'm enjoying having like all of this extra content around Dancing with the Stars to like pair with the actual show. And I just love Dancing with the Stars. I just think it's a fun show. I love watching the dances. There are some, like I said, really, really strong dancers this season. So it's been a lot of fun so far. I think it's only been 2 episodes and only 2 people have gone home so far. So if you have been watching this season, let me know your thoughts and who your favorite dancers are, and let's have a Dancing with the Stars chat because I would love nothing more than that. Those are all the TV shows I've been watching. Now let's just get into kind of random things and some content creators. One thing I've been loving this month is getting back into exercising. So I mentioned in my channel update video a few videos ago that I had hurt my elbow, and knock on wood, it is getting better. I have more range of motion. I don't have the consistent pain. So that's fantastic. I feel like a new person, but that means I'm able to get back into just like moving my body more. And obviously that always is going to make you feel better. I have a subscription to Apple Fitness Plus or whatever that's called. And so there's classes on there. There's like everything that you could ever think of. I do Pilates, I do some strength training, yoga, stretches, things like that. Those are what I do, but like I said, there's like something for everybody. And it just feels really good to be able to move my body more because I haven't been able to exercise since like April because I have just been in so much pain. So that is a fantastic improvement for me and makes me feel a lot better. The other thing I've been loving that's kind of random is putting my pumpkin spice creamer in my English breakfast tea. This is so random. This is such a weird thing, but I feel like I need to include a little food item. One day I was like, I'm gonna try my pumpkin creamer because I have that for my iced coffees. And it's delicious. It makes it taste like a chai. Like it's so nice and spicy and warm and autumnal. If you like tea and you like pumpkin, maybe give that a try because it has really been putting me in the fall spirit. Finally, I want to talk about two content creators that I've been really loving. They are very similar in kind of what they do with their content. They're kind of like doing commentary, but the first is Hannah Alonso, and she has an anti-MLM kind of series that she does where she's breaking down why MLMs are so harmful and you shouldn't be involved in them, etc., etc. But she also does an influencer insanity series, and that focuses on like trends on TikTok or things that have gone viral, and she always picks like different examples, and so it's like listening to a podcast that has visual aids. And I think she's very well spoken and informative and kind of like gets her points across well. So I really enjoy watching her videos. And the other creator is Kiki Chanel, and she kind of does the same thing where it's like focusing on, you know, like overconsumption TikToks and kind of breaking them down and like why they're so harmful to see and consume and things like that. I've seen people say that it's kind of like Hannah is like the big sister vibes and Kiki's like little sister, and that's kind of like the dynamic because they cover a lot of like the same topics, obviously, because it's what's trending on TikTok, like what is going on TikTok. They kind of have two different approaches to the content, so that's why I enjoy watching both of them. I like putting on their videos while I'm working or something because they're usually very long and it's like a comprehensive, if you've never heard of this topic, you can watch this video and like know everything about it, and again see those kind of like visual aids of the actual TikToks being used. I've just really been enjoying that type of content, and if you're interested in kind of breakdowns of different things that are happening on TikTok and things like that, definitely recommend checking out Hannah and Kiki. And that is everything for September. Another month come and gone. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know if you've been watching or reading or enjoying any of the things that I talked about, or if you have any recommendations for me to check out. And make sure you're subscribed to see all of my upcoming videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!